Hey, welcome to the very first episode of the Coach's Corner on the Pretty Focused podcast. In this series, we're going to dive deep into the insights and experiences of our pretty focused coaches. They are not only guiding our students to success, but they are also building their own thriving food photography business. And in this episode, we are tackling a topic that I think all of us struggle with at one point in time, and that is imposter syndrome. Our coaches are going to be really opening up and sharing their experiences with imposter syndrome and how they overcome. So let's dive in. All right, guys, can you recall a specific moment when you felt like an imposter?
2018.
Tell me about it.
That was the year that I actually enrolled in the course, and I didn't enroll myself. I was actually enrolled by my husband because I was afraid of failure. I was afraid that I didn't have what it would take. And so for me, that moment of like, do I really belong here was so heavy. It probably could have paralyzed me if somebody hadn't pushed me off the cliff.
And look at you 6 years later now, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Are you so glad you took that leap?
I'm so glad he shoved me off the edge. Yes.
Yeah, he just shoved you. There was no push, no like nudge. It was a full on shove.
Mhm.
I love that. What else, you guys? Can you recall specific moments when you have struggled with imposter syndrome?
Anytime I post recipes for sale, even like even what, 2.5 years later, I especially since this year I haven't been as on the ball with posting recipes for personal reasons, but I just get that nervous, like, "Oh my gosh, are they actually gonna like these recipes? Are they gonna sell? Am I gonna have to, like, go back to waiting tables or working as an admin assistant?" And then everything's fine. Even if they don't sell, like, I'm like, "All right, what's next?" And getting that excitement for next week's recipes, and then I get scared again. It's just a never-ending cycle for
Just
me.
a never ending cycle, even though the evidence would show you have sold out every time you post it, or almost every time.
Almost every time, yeah, like, I sell at least one, and then I don't know. It's just a never-ending cycle.
Oh my goodness. Anybody else have any thoughts on that?
I
I
do.
I agree with Lauren when I started in 2018, but it's funny, I feel like I've had more of it now 6 years later because not that I'm in a rut, but, you kinda get comfortable and used to where you are, and then you see new students, grads who are really killing it, and you're like, "Dang." It makes you evaluate. It's made me evaluate my work, like, "Shoot, I need to up my game," and just I think it'll be a lifetime of a struggle to look at others' work and compare, so
That's
wah,
crazy.
wah,
That's crazy
wah.
insight. Somebody, I wouldn't know. I don't think our students are going to expect to hear that from you, Redonda.
I
And you're
do,
here,
I
you're
look at
saying 6 years later
Mhm,
how you feel like you have more imposter syndrome than you did when you started. That's
mhm.
crazy. Wow. Well, Stephanie and Lindsay, I know that you were both ready to talk. So, Stephanie, why don't you go first?
Okay, so we had just went on a amazing coaches retreat where we got to meet all of these amazing other coaches who have been in the industry. And one of the coaches was showing me her amazing photos, and her work is just different than mine. But as I'm looking at it, I'm going, "Oh God, my work looks like crud. Like, oh, this is awful." And then she later on that day, she's like, "Oh, you are really good at drinks photography." And it was just like, "Oh, okay, like my stuff isn't crud." But your brain just sees something different and you're just like, oh, I don't want to show off mine.
I think what is going to be so interesting about this as we dive in is that we're going to find that everybody struggles with it. We don't want to talk about it though. We don't want to admit that we have imposter syndrome, or we don't want to admit those insecurities or talk about them, but honestly talking about them I think kind of helps us work past it. So, what about you, Lindsay?
I mean, to be brutally honest, I deal with it every single day still. Um, all these years later, I still I feel like I'm faking it, fake it till you make it. Like I haven't made it yet and I'm still faking it. I still feel like that. It feels like every session is kind of a fluke thing. I can rein it in, and kind of talk myself back down. But so one specific time though, I was contacted by a blogger who herself is a very accomplished photographer. She's been published in cooking magazines and she does beautiful work and has a gorgeous portfolio. And I almost didn't tell her yes because I was so intimidated to work with her. I'm like, what does she want with me? That was the worst case of that I've ever felt. But I did it. I just did it scared, like you tell us to. And now I've been working with her for about 2.5 years.
Wow. Oh my
So it
gosh.
actually started out as a temporary relationship just to help her when she was going through something. And it ended up working so well that now 2.5 years later, she'll take every session I can give her every month. And she's my favorite to work for.
Wow.
So you can't let that get in your way and make you say no when you feel intimidated or feel like you're an imposter. Because sometimes that can turn out to be like the best relationship you have. So yeah,
what
it's
we tell
cool.
our boys is you can't be brave if you're not scared.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I'm like, well,
Yeah.
I want to be brave. I like to think that I'm brave. I don't like this scared feeling, but I realize, doing something scared actually makes you brave.
Mm-hmm.
So good.
Because if you do things that make you feel comfortable, that's just doing things. That's not being brave at all. And so oftentimes whenever you take those steps, you're just going to be so surprised at what's on the other side.
I have written down growth only happens when you're uncomfortable.
Oh,
It's true.
it's so true. That is
And
so true.
I also have written down, it's a quote I read from another food photographer. If you let fear of failure take over, then you'll be afraid to try.
Oh, wow.
I have
I
this
put that
printed
down.
off on my fridge.
Look at
right
you
next to
guys
me.
on the
Like,
other side of scary is growth. I love all these quotes that you guys have like ready to go, like right there on your computer monitors, just to continue to encourage you in your own journey. That's amazing. So, does anybody else have any like personal experiences with imposter syndrome?
Well, like pretty recently, I had decided to go back into selling exclusives. So I kind of had the same like Alicia thing where I'm like, but what if nobody buys my stuff?
And you sold out, didn't you?
I did.
I think you just sold out yesterday or today, if I'm recalling correctly, didn't you?
Mm-hmm. Twice this week, yeah.
Okay.
But still, you post the stuff and you're putting yourself out there and yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's important for people to know too, is that, we talk about they're running their own business, like as they're coaching, like they are not just like running their own business. They're like actively posting in the Buyers Club. Like our coaches use the Buyers Club to sell their work. So you are going to see the coaches utilizing the Buyers Club. You're going to see them reaching out for new clients. You're going to see them posting for, their recipes for sale because they are actively working with clients. And so that's what I love. I think that's what's so valuable is that you are a couple of steps ahead of people, right? In your journey, and you got like hands extended pulling them alongside you to kind of get them to the next phase. Does anybody else have anything they want to share about imposter syndrome?
Mine, I struggle daily, and I think we can all relate to that. But mine overflows into my home life too, because I feel like a lot of days I have a very full plate, and most of you, everybody here knows, but for those who don't know, we're a homeschooling family, and I have the imposter syndrome that's like I want to be the hero. I want to do it all. And I'm one person. And so I struggled there because when you have homeschooling and cooking and diapers to change and work to do and coaching feedback to give, it can feel overwhelming. And I am the kind of person where I just want to do it all, you know? And
Yeah.
I have had to learn to, well, one, we've changed our curriculum. So it's more student led this year than mommy led. And that has been really helpful. And we're not there yet. I think Ivy mentioned that at our retreat. And that really stuck with my heart because we have to stay focused on the yet part. It's okay to not be there yet. As long as you're taking those baby steps every day, that's what counts. So for me, I have had to learn to delegate, even with simple tasks like washing the dishes or swapping the laundry. Like I said, it carries over into our home life as well. But if our older children can help do that, and my husband is here and he can do things, I may want to do it all. I may want to be the hero, but if I'm doing it all, I can't give 100% of myself in all of it. So I have to learn to step back and let others do what they can do so that I can give my 100% where it counts, where I'm most needed.
That's so good. That's so good. I used to think that asking for help, like, sealed the deal on the fact that I was an imposter because I couldn't do it all.
Yes.
Like, I didn't know everything. I don't have all the answers. Like, I'm not the best, like, in all the areas of, and whenever I would have to go and ask for help in those areas, it made me feel like I wasn't good enough.
Right.
Because I didn't have the answer. And they did. And I could see how they knew so much more than me. And I was like, but I own my own business. Like, I'm helping other people establish their own business. And how can I have to know everything. I have to do it all. And I have just really realized that it's actually a strength to let other people work within their strengths. That actually what makes you a leader is raising people up or finding people who work within their strengths, which just so happen to be your weakness. Because that's what we do, is that we compare. I was comparing my weakness against their strength. Not that it was a weakness, but that it was just just not my strongest area. I can operate it in it if I have to, but that's not my greatest strength. And so once I fully realized that it was okay to let go of some of that, like, I was like, look at all of the things I'm getting done is because I'm delegating, and look at how much more people around me are fulfilled because they are working within their strengths and I'm working within mine. So I love that, Amber. We often don't think of imposter syndrome, I think, maybe in that way, but I think that's so true, that you can't do everything, and we try to do everything, and that is going to make us feel like we're failing.
Right.
Because we weren't meant to do everything, right?
Right. My husband says all the time, he says, I can change a diaper or I can bathe a baby, but I can't work that camera. So you need to get over there to your styling board and you need to work that camera.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
We tried to have we talk about mindset and the way you use your words, and it's still a standing joke with my adult children when I would say, I'll let you unload the dishwasher instead of you need to, or you will, or this is your job. So it was a privilege, and now they know better, but let them help.
Yeah. People want to help too.
Yeah.
That's the thing I've learned too. People want to help. And I have said, like, no, that's okay. I'm good. I'm good. And I didn't realize how that actually hurts relationships whenever you don't let people help.
My husband is always asking, when I tell him I have a busy week and I have to do this, this, and this, he's like, what can I do to help? And I know when I say nothing, I have to do it all myself, it does hurt him a little bit. So I've been trying to be like, okay, because I really don't want to be like, well, you have to do the dishes a million times, because Like Amber, he won't touch my camera. He's afraid of my camera. So I can do that and I can write the recipes, but I'm trying to let go and be like, okay, he can do some of the housework for once, you know.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. What about you, Nikki?
I've definitely run into it in a lot of professional settings. I remember I took this one job and I honestly just didn't feel like I was prepared for it. I was just out of school again, and I was working with chefs that have had famous restaurants, and they just were so far above my skill level. And the interview was a practical. So I had to go in there and actually show them what I knew how to do. Um, thank God, a week before that, he had told me that the interview was going to be structured that way. So, in order to help kind of get over myself, anything that I felt like I was lacking in skill, I went out and I practiced. I had to fillet whole fish. I hadn't done that in probably 10 years. So I went to the market and I got myself 3 fish and I sat there and I practiced. So I think that's another thing that really helps me is when I'm noticing that I'm feeling like I'm not up to the task, like what is it that I'm really feeling not great about, and going in there and focusing on that skill to maybe bring it up to a level where I do feel good about it. So I think that's also a great way for people to go, is just trying to dive a little bit deeper and maybe bring up the skill set, and then you will, kind of lose that imposter syndrome a little bit, knowing that you can do it.
Yeah, that's so good. That's so good. Because that was actually the next question, Nikki, is what strategies, like what do you do to overcome those feelings? How do you do it? How do we get past it?
Lots of positive attitude and good self-talk.
Seriously.
I think a
Seriously.
good thing in the space that we're in the field that we're in, is to look back at where you started. That's always a good, I do that a lot with students. I'm like, I'll go back in the course and pull up like their very first session when they're feeling kind of defeated. And I'm like, look at where you started. Look at how much growth you've had. And I think that can be a big confidence booster to give other people, or to give yourself, is just look at how far you've come, you know?
Yeah.
Because practice doesn't make perfect, but you just you got to keep going, and you have to give yourself credit where it's due and look back, you know.
That's so good. We kind of talked through imposter syndrome within our grad circle last week. And I shared that very same thing with them. Like, go print out your photos, your very first photo. Like, there's a reason why I have printed photos, and it's not just for decoration. It's like, it's a reminder, right? It is a visual reminder of where I am. So if you guys have not printed pictures yet, oh my gosh, do it. Not just for artwork, but just it just brings a sense of pride to what you have accomplished. And so you guys don't want to see my before photo. Maybe one day I will be brave enough to share it.
Yes, we do. We do want to see it.
Okay, I'll have to share it at some point. It is, I mean, oof, they were not good. They were not good at all. And but it's ingrained in my memory to and just to see where I've come. You know, I think for grads, hanging up that grad certificate you get in the mail, you know, your before photo, your certificate, your after photos, you know, it's just you got to have those reminders in front of you. But what other strategies, what other things do you guys do to help you overcome?
I surround myself with a community that is there for me. I was in this industry before I joined Pretty Focus, and it was me against the world. And then to join a community like Pretty Focus, where you're all going through the course at the same time, and you kind of retain a little handful of the friends that you make with just private messages. And when you're feeling low, you just go, give me some tips or whatnot. And they'll be like, what are you talking about? That looks great. You're losing your marbles. Like, what?
Yeah, community is so important. A good community is so important. We talk about that, a lot, and we discussed it at our retreat, where it was like, acknowledge when you're down, but then don't stay there, as a community. And I think that you have to do that for other people. I think you have to commit to that of, I am not going to leave you there. I'm not going to leave you there, Stephanie. Like, I will acknowledge it with you, but I'm not going to leave you there, because letting you stay there does not help your imposter syndrome, or it does not actually lift you up. Right. And so I think that we have to kind of take that, kind of make that little commitment to ourselves and the people we're in community with, that I'm not going to let you stay there. Right. Because nobody wants to stay down. Nobody wants to stay down. Right. And usually we share with people because we're looking to be lifted up. Right. Do you guys share with people and hoping that they're just going to drive you down further? Right. That's not why I open up to people. It's because I want them to lift me up, not to make me feel worse about myself. And so we have to make sure that we're doing that.
I mean, I was just going to say, I just think it's such a simple thing that we can do for each other without asking as a community. Just take a second to tell somebody that they're doing a great job, or that their work is beautiful, or you see some growth in them in some way, because it costs you nothing. And most likely that person is dealing with the same feelings of insecurity that you are. So 2 seconds, like, hey, this is beautiful, great work. That can go a long way to somebody,
So good. It costs you nothing. It doesn't cost anything to be kind to somebody and to encourage somebody. And people need those words. They need
the words. Without being asked, just kind of sprinkle some kindness,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, Radonna, what were we going to say?
Well, I was agreeing that lift me up, but then don't leave me there, even challenge me. Because I don't want somebody to, if I'm feeling imposter syndrome and people are like, oh, your work is great. And I appreciate that. I do. Who doesn't want to hear the sprinkle kindness? But then help me grow, help me move beyond this. And so, like, if I'm struggling in a certain area, I'll go and study a ton of blogs and other people's photos and just be inspired and encouraged. And Lindsay, I should leave more like, this is beautiful, like, the free kindness kind of thing. I should do that more.
And no, you do that plenty.
But I mean, so I go study and learn and then be inspired by others. And I take a break sometimes too. Sometimes it's just a mental fatigue thing. And I'm like, just step away.
Absolutely.
Come back, and then come back with fresh eyes and fresh ears to hear from others.
Absolutely. Stepping away is important too. Social media is in our face. And, I follow people to be inspired, but sometimes I have to unfollow or just mute people. Because I'm working through something, and every time I see a post of theirs, or I'm going through like a discouraging season, I just feel like it doesn't help. And so I've just kind of had to draw some boundaries there. Love those people, wish them the absolute best, but for my heart and my mind, and what is best for me is to set that boundary. And maybe I can unmute them at one point. But like for me now, where I am, it's like I have to focus on working through these current feelings that I have of imposter, or that, I'm not going to be successful enough, or I'll never get there, or whatever it is.
I think in this, you kind of hit, I mean, everybody's kind of like got my wheels turning over here over things I want to say. So with social media, like one thing I realized years ago, because, we're millennials, most of us are millennials. We're on that cusp of, we remember the time when we did have social interactions, and then MySpace and Facebook and all that came along, and people edit out their lives for social media. They're not going to show the negative. And so that does make us feel like imposters. And for me, going to this coaches retreat a couple of weeks ago and connecting, and not only just having people lift you up, but realizing I'm not alone in the feelings like of imposter syndrome, that meeting people who I've looked up to for the last few years and hearing that they think the same insecurities that I do helped me. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not alone. This person who is amazing in my eyes, they go through the same things as I do, and they see me as amazing. And so I think that part of community helps me lift me up, and then we can encourage each other and lift everybody up together. So, I mean, that's the thing with social media, is like, because our job is isolating and we are on social media all the time, it is hard to just shut it off and be like, I'm not going to listen to the negativity. I'm not going to believe everything in their life is all roses and sunshine, because that's not my life. So I think that's how I wanted to kind of tie everything together.
Yeah, no, I think that's so good, Alicia. It's so good.
So I like to I can spiral really quickly when it comes to imposter syndrome. So I like to remove myself from the situation where you guys, it's a form of unplugging, but I will just go run and try to clear my head, because once I'm focusing on something else, the spiraling stops. And then I am done. And I'm like, okay, really, like, I'm able to come back to earth and be realistic with my mindset.
But what if we don't run?
Well, you don't have to run. You can walk. Just a matter of like changing the scenery, you know? You like, I know I'm a little like different, where I'll just like go exercise for an hour or two.
I wish I was like that. I do enjoy walks though. I do enjoy walks.
I think just like going around the block for 10 to 15 minutes can do a lot to reset the mind.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, now I have lights up in my studio, and I've got like these daylight blocking curtains, and it can be brutal under the lights. And I know, as you guys know that, because you guys use artificial light too. So you don't necessarily have all the daylight around. And it's like, I just need to see the sun. I just need to see the sun. I need to go soak it up. And that definitely helps for sure.
I was just going to say, I like to do Target refreshes. Just go walk around Target, get in my car, get my sunshine in the car, and then just walk around Target.
Can you just walk around Target? I don't think that's possible.
Of course not. No.
Of course not. Prop shop.
Oh my gosh, that's too funny. Yeah. You know what? Maybe I should do that this afternoon. Go get some Starbies. Go walk around Target.
All do it.
Target. Let's all do that today.
It's self-care.
Send selfies to each other. All right. So we've talked about some coping strategies and how important it is to have a support system. How do you reframe those thoughts though? How can we fix those thoughts? Because we can have coping strategies and we can have a really great community, but what can we do to really fix those thoughts?
Focusing on the things that you are proud of and the things that you know that you do well. And seeing, like, maybe when you did this one thing, there was a time when you didn't feel like you could do it, but look what you have accomplished. And, kind of like Lindsay was saying, go back and look at where you started and where you're at. And just trying to focus on the things in your life that did go right, the things that you did accomplish, the things that you feel great about. And knowing that this can also be that.
Yes. And celebrating it too, right? That's what we did. That's what we needed to do. And when we went to Disney World, is we just needed to celebrate, and we celebrated. We celebrated. We laughed. We cried. We cheered. We danced, we did so much, it was such a happy week, and it was, I think, so good. Not that everybody has to go to Disney World every time. I mean, if you can, that go for it, but just kind
Not
of
today, they're closed.
yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Just taking a minute to remembering and acknowledging, but then making sure you're celebrating the accomplishments too. Celebration is a discipline for sure. But what are some other things that we can do to reframe those thoughts, to fix
I
those
think
thoughts permanently, Lauren?
it's important to be really kind and gentle with yourself. I think that the ability to reframe a thought is a learned skill. So even if today you can't just automatically do that for yourself at every turn, it's a muscle that you can build up over time. And it's something that you can start very small with and just practice and be kind of consistent with yourself. This is something that is kind of like a form of loving yourself well. And if you're not able to do that for yourself naturally, this is where you really can begin to lean into the authentic people around you. So sometimes if you don't know yourself well enough, you doubt yourself. And if you surround yourself with people who you allow to know you and know you well, they can speak that truth into you. And then you can begin to practice just what they're giving to you, but begin to do it for yourself. And I think that is something that does not happen overnight. And it really has to be practiced and kind of consistently over a long period of time. But you'll find in the beginning with the little stuff, it's very difficult. But by the time you get to the bigger stuff, if you've been practicing, it becomes very second nature. And you get to the point where you're not only being able to do that for yourself, but it's pouring out of you to everyone around you. So it's a contagious thing. I highly recommend it. Is this something that you want to catch and spread?
Absolutely. Yes. I was going to say, you guys are giving such great advice.
I think
Go
it
ahead.
starts with an attitude of thankfulness. I think that counteracts negativity, because thankfulness, I don't think also comes natural. And so you can say, thank you that I was able to take that terrible photo. You can just say, thank you that I have, like Nikki said, I've come this far. I can do this. Can I grow? Absolutely. But thank you. It's contagious. Like Lauren said, the positive mindset.
Yeah.
So be thankful.
Well, and I touched on this earlier too, but having the mindset of I may not be there yet, but I'm actively doing something to get there. And yeah, I totally agree with what everybody else is saying about print a picture that you're proud of and look at pictures that, you're not so proud of from the beginning and see where you've said in the past, okay, I'm not there yet, but I want to get there. And then look at where you are now and look at where you want to be and focus on where you want to be. Take those little steps, even if it's just a tiny thing every day, you're winning. You're taking a step in the right direction. So focus on like what was said before, because that has really helped me.
Yeah. Yeah. That one little word, I'm not there yet.
That was really impressed on my heart. Yeah.
I think it's also important. This is something that Lauren went on a deep dive with us at the retreat. And, we've talked with the grads inside the grad circle about this, but is looking for the evidence, looking for the evidence that supports the imposter syndrome. Like, that's what I was saying. Like, there's evidence that supports that that I am never going to be successful because they're successful. And that means they've taken it all. I think we think that they've taken all this success. There's none left for me. That is the only evidence I have to point to the fact that I'm an imposter or that I will never be successful, right? Or as successful as I want to be, But if I take a look at the contrary, right? If I take a look at the exact opposite and start to look at, like Nikki has said, all of the things that points to the fact that I am successful, that I'm already, successful, and that I can already do this. So like Alicia and, Jen posting your exclusives, and you're thinking, I'm this is it. This is the last recipe. Who knows? This is going to be the last time I ever post, Are they going to sell? And if you start to actually look at the evidence and the history to show that the exact opposite is true, right? You can really start to reframe the thought when you start to challenge the belief about being an imposter. Challenge the belief you're not going to sell out. Challenge the belief you're not going to be successful. Challenge the belief, right? With real evidence. The evidence that I point to that I'm not going to be successful is because somebody else is successful. That makes no sense.
Your evidence list needs to be louder than your illogical fears list.
Yeah.
You got me
Yep.
thinking. So like 6 years ago, traveling to a different country was not a thing. Like I thought it was something we could never accomplish. And this is all focused for Pretty Focused, but I was just thinking because right next to me is a portrait of my husband and I in Paris with the Eiffel Tower in the background. And it's above our TV. So, and every now and then my husband will look up that and be like, hey, we did that. We went there. And, now 6 years later, I've been to 7 different countries in Europe. And like, so when you do put your mind to it, and then we did do little photo shoots in some of the different countries and we have them up. And I just realized like, that's my evidence. I can do these things that I thought I didn't either. I thought I didn't deserve, or I thought I wasn't capable of doing. Wow. And yet I have that evidence literally surrounding me right now. And that can help with Pretty Focus and think, okay, well, I was able to do that. I was able to go to Amsterdam by myself. So why can't getting in the kitchen and making a recipe and taking pictures should be a walk in the park. So I think that kind of helps me too.
Did that make anybody else get a little choked up, or was it just me?
I love that.
Don't, or I will cry. You saw how many times I cried.
That's amazing. I love that.
I was scrolling Instagram the other day, and I was just mindlessly scrolling, like you talk about, Melody. And I stopped on a photo. I'm like, wow, that's pretty. I'm like, wait, I took that. I did not remember. It's been a little bit. I'm like, oh my gosh, I took that.
So good.
Was it on a client's page?
Yeah, they had posted, the recipe on their Instagram page, and I was like,
That's awesome. Alicia, I think that's so great. You're like, there's evidence all around. There's evidence all around. You're never going to look at those pictures the same way again, are you?
No. And I think to remember to look at those photos when I do, struggling with anxiety, and just when I get in those dark moments, just literally look up and see the evidence of the things you've done. And no, I'm not going to get choked up. I'm not going to get choked up.
You can do it.
Sorry, Lindsay. No, Lindsay, not you. And like the award ceremony we have, and I have that on my wall next to the acting award I got earlier this year, and having those accomplishments around me. And even somebody once told me, like, there's so much negativity in the world. You need to fill your space with positive images. And so getting off social media and printing those photos of your food or whatever, they have so much power. And when you post those, even if they're just the little sticky notes of affirmations, like that helps so much with your mindset.
Oh my gosh.
And now I'm rambling. Oh no, Melody.
No, that was not a ramble at all.
That was good.
That was beautiful. When you are feeling down, when you're in those dark places, look up. Look up and see the evidence all around you that says otherwise. Dang.
Another thing I was reminded of just listening to everyone earlier this year, I was discouraged. I went through imposter syndrome coming on as a brand new pretty focused coach and very recent grad amongst all these other super incredibly amazingly talented women who I look up to. And I mean, one, what an honor. But two, it gave me pretty focus, gave me the courage to reach out, to reach out to someone about helping with their magazine. And what I was going to say is, you can't succeed if you don't try. You can't take those. I mean, just trying is a baby step, and you never know where that may lead. And all year I've had my photos now published in a magazine, and I've had another opportunity with another magazine, and it is like, if I would have never tried, if I would have never asked, I mean, she could have said no, and that's okay, and put my focus somewhere else. But if I would have never given that a thought, or if I would have said, no, you're just not good enough to do that, I would have never known the outcome. I would have never known where I am now. And so being thankful for trying, and having that courage, and the community backing you, ties into what we were talking about earlier, the community. So Pretty Focused has inspired me a lot to just do things that I never thought I would ever do.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So
That's amazing. I think we hear that, like, you can't succeed if you don't try, and we're like, oh, good quote.
but
That's
it's true.
That's a good one. That's a good one. That's a great quote. I'm going to print that off and remind me. But we actually don't ever really take action on that because we just think it's a nice quote. But I think all of you here are proof that that quote and the stories that you have just shared, just how true it is that, Lindsay with your client, Redonda, Alicia, like all of you guys didn't know until you actually tried.
Yeah. You gotta live it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Do
so
it
good.
scared.
Do it scared. That's right. So what advice do you guys have as we wrap up this very first episode of Coach's Corner? I'm so excited about all of the episodes to come. What advice do you have for others who are struggling with imposter syndrome? Whether these people are struggling with imposter syndrome, Lauren, because they're scared to join the course and they're afraid that they're not going to be able to do it, right? Or maybe that they are in the throes of the course and they see all of the photos around them and they see all of the people ahead of them and they think all the success is gone, right?
Yeah.
That's what I think. I think the success is gone. It's like limited. Isn't that like, that's the most limited mindset ever, is that there's only so much success in the world. But you guys, what advice do you have for people?
I would say relentlessly hunt down the areas where you feel resistance to yourself, name it and claim it and fight for it, because you're really the only thing that's holding you back.
Yeah.
I would recommend asking for help too. If there's a specific area that you're struggling with, maybe just putting it out there and asking, the coaches for help, or whoever, your family. Maybe you have like a buddy in the course that you're going through the course with. Just ask for help and just put your heart out there and get the support. And then that can help bring you back down to earth real quick.
Yes. Absolutely.
When somebody's like, no, you're not struggling with that. You're good to go.
Yeah, the community is pretty awesome.
Yes. Yes, it is.
I would add too, even when you are struggling, to try and use that to your advantage. There's a lot of learned lessons in failure or things just not turning out the way that you wanted it to. And I think, going back to like doing management positions, you learn so much more from actually bad managers than you do good managers, because you kind of learn what you would do differently or what not to ever do, or just you'd find your own path. So I think, taking those setbacks and using them actually as a springboard to continue going forward, letting it fuel you instead of kind of dragging you down.
That's so good.
Yeah, that, you're a lifelong learner. You're
Yeah.
constantly learning. You don't know it all.
Sometimes you win, sometimes you learn, right?
Yes, that's an excellent quote. Look at all these quotes.
Love that. Stephanie, what about you? What advice do you have for people struggling with it?
I say that this is not a life or death situation. We got to remember why we're doing this. Most of us chose this because we had a passion for it, and we can't forget about the passion, to stay rooted in the whole reason why we started. A lot of people don't have the blessing to have that job that they love to get to every day. And sometimes it becomes mundane and you forget why you're doing this, and just to stay rooted and know that you're lucky and blessed to have what you have right now.
Yeah, that's good. I love that. It's not a life or death situation. We feel like it is, right? But
yeah.
It's not.
No, what's the worst? You screw up on a picture, you got to start again. I've been doing this I went to high school for culinary arts. Do I still burn chicken? Yeah, I burnt it earlier. My whole basement here was smoky, and I was afraid it was going to be all foggy for the Zoom. But we all make mistakes still. You just got to go with it and roll and get back at it.
Yeah. My husband will ask me, okay, Melody, like, what's the worst case scenario here? And when I say it out loud, I'm like, well, actually, I guess it's not that bad. Like, how many of you guys here on this call have taken a blurry photo? I still take blurry photos. How many of you guys have burnt something?
Today.
Yeah, right? How many of you guys have had to rephotograph a recipe this month? Like, you know what I mean? Like, like it didn't turn out the way you wanted it, so you got to rephotograph it. Like, this is real. These things happen. And, there's a quote that says, but what if I fail? Oh, but darling, what if you fly? And I think that first part, but what if you fail? And the reality is, you're going to burn the chicken. You're going to take the blurry photo. You're going to say the wrong thing. That is the reality. We are human. Nobody is perfect. We are going to have moments that we hopefully learn from. Hopefully we learn from it, like Nikki said, and we don't just wallow in it, or, we quit because of it, or, or just blame it on everybody else. We are going to have those moments where it's not perfect.
On Tuesday, I had to do a layered Jell-O mold, and Nikki and I had poured it on Monday. Tuesday, I tried to unmold it, and the layer, the bottom layer is white, and then the top layer is red. And the red seeped in and ruined the white layer. And I texted Nikki, and I'm like, I was so upset. But I had thought ahead that this may happen. So I had bought extra of everything, luckily. So she and I texted back and forth, and we were like, okay, here's what we did wrong. We greased the pan. We shouldn't have greased the pan, because that created we needed some adhesion to keep the Jell-O, stuck to the pan, so it didn't leak in. So we came up with, a plan to just try it again. And I tried it again right then and there, and it worked out perfectly. We had great adhesion. The layers stayed separate, and it was beautiful. I wanted to quit. And yes, I threw it in the garbage in a fit of rage. But you got to get back on the horse. It turned out beautiful. I will show you guys the pictures because it was bad. The first one was like swirly. It was so bad.
Oh,
It
that's
was
so
so bad,
frustrating. But yay for Nikki.
I'm
Yay for
always the
community.
cheerleader. I'm the positive cheerleader. I bring the positivity.
She does. She does.
That's so great.
But
I
Yeah.
love seeing that you're human too, Lindsay, and you actually do make mistakes.
my clients never know about the mistakes though.
I bet they don't.
They don't
No.
need, like Nikki and I say all the time when we're working together, they do not need to know how the sausage is made. We keep all that under wraps.
Love that. I love that so much.
Yeah. Get back on the horse. Keep going. You
That's
got
right.
this, you know?
There's going to be times where you literally, Lindsay, fall off the horse and you just got back on a horse. So Lindsay has a real life story, not a cliche story of this happening, and she's literally back on the horse. And so you're going to have those moments, but the thing is to keep going, keep persevering, because when you persevere, that's when true character is developed, when you persevere through those things. And you do it scared. So does anybody else have anything else that they want to say?
One thing I mentioned on the retreat, and I'm like spreading this around because I want it to become a thing. My director of a show I did in the spring, she said, there's no such thing as safe places, just brave places. And I think I mentioned this on the retreat.
Yes.
And changing that, because safe space is, I don't know, for me, it's like, oh, but I'm still scared. No, it's a brave space. So you go in and you have to be brave to even post in Pretty Focus. And we have such a great community, and to have that brave space, and even to find those people that you can say like things that you wouldn't normally say to everybody, but the people that you can trust. And so finding that brave space, which I think is exactly what Pretty Focus is. And I know there's that imposter syndrome for posting your first recipe. Like, it's nerve-wracking for everybody. But just showing up and doing it scared and just doing it, it's really not as bad as you think it's going to be. And everybody's going to cheer you on and support you and lift you up and show you so much love.
That's so good.
We've all needed that. And so I think I've heard all of you say it. I know that I feel it at the core of my being. It's too good to keep to ourselves. So as we pour back into the community, it's not a job. It's a way to pay it forward. We know what this has meant for each of us personally. We've seen it in each other's lives and how incredible it is. So when new students come in, we jump at the opportunity to help them through, to be their loudest cheering section so that they can begin to believe that they can do it too. Because on the other side, we know that our greatest success is when we are all doing well.
Yes.
And emphasizing that all the coaches have been through the course too. Sometimes I don't know if they realize that, like, no, we were there. We were right there with you with that first homework assignment all the way through portfolio. Even if things have changed a little bit, it's still, we feel you through the however many miles through the computer we actually are. We feel that fear of posting your first recipe. So we understand.
Yep. Yeah. You guys come from a place of knowing, like, you know.
And we also know what's on the other side and how amazing it is. And we want to make sure that everybody is ready to experience the greatness on the other side too.
Guys, this is so great.
I love it here.
I took a picture of you guys because y'all are such an inspiration.
Oh,
such a great community.
Coming from like the queen of inspiration and building people up, it's like,
well, I don't know about the queen, but thank you.
Yeah, you need a crown.
When you have the attitude of thankfulness, and then like Melody says, celebrate, just even if you fake it, a beginning, it eventually begins to be like celebrating others and encouraging others seeps back to yourself too. So don't take things personal when you're being helped and confronted with, let's reframe that mindset. It's to help you learn and grow, and it's done in love. And
absolutely. Absolutely. Well, you guys, that's a wrap on the very first episode of Coach's Corner here on the Pretty Focused podcast. We hope that you found the insights and stories shared by our coaches helpful, as they have opened up with their own stories about imposter syndrome. You know, it's something that we all face, but we don't often talk about it because we're afraid, as Alicia said, that we are the only ones. But we are here to tell you, you are not alone in this feeling. Being an imposter or feeling like an imposter. Nobody here is an imposter. Okay. Feeling like an imposter doesn't mean that you aren't capable. Okay. It's a sign that you're pushing yourself into new and exciting growth. That's what that is. Okay. So if you're struggling with imposter syndrome or you need support, you know what? You're not alone. Our coaches are here to help. They're here to help guide you, just as they have done for so many other people. So thank you guys for tuning in. We look forward to having you back for our next episode. Until then, keep pushing forward, trust your journey, and remember, you've got this.